Do it.
Maybe. Okay.
Good morning, Daniela. How you doing?
Hi, Charlotte. I'm doing great. How about
Good.
you?
Good stuff. Yeah, I'm okay. Thank you. So our topic today is
Shaman on drugs.
okay, or not, as the case may
Yeah.
be. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. So where should we start? Because it's a massive topic and we could talk for hours, but we won't.
Yeah. Um, I'll start with the question that a lot of clients ask me, and
Okay.
it's, "Oh, great, you're a shaman, so can we do ayahuasca?"
Okay.
So, do we use psychoactive plants or not, and why?
Okay. Okay. So the question is it necessary?
Yeah, let's start personal. Like, do you use it with your clients? Do you administer it
No.
or not?
No, definitely, definitely not. Um,
Mhm.
okay, how do I approach this? Um, plant medicine's become very, very fashionable. I would say dangerously fashionable, actually. Um, it can be seen as a cure-all. Let's get the bumps out of my spiritual path once and for all, and then move on and go back to work on a Monday. Which is really not the point. To learn to work with plants such as ayahuasca, people do very, very long apprenticeships, should we say, in European terms, but they're brought up with it. In these places, such as the Peruvian Amazon, where I visited, the people are raised on it
Yeah.
at different initiations, probably as early as like 8 years old.
Yeah,
So
yeah. As
any
children.
yeah, right the way through their
Mm.
lives. Um, the name of the ayahuasca shaman is an ayahuasquero, and traditionally they live in the forest with the plant on their own, taking it maybe daily, maybe weekly, for anything from 7 to 11 years. So, without going into all of the details of that, that is the short answer as to why no, I do not administer ayahuasca. Um, definitely, yeah, definitely not. Um, and that's all they do. That's all those shaman do, is they are the ayahuasquero for that tribe.
Yeah.
I can't speak about other tribes in such detail, but if I'm going to make an assumption, it would be there is similar training,
Hmm.
very much part of the culture. So no, I
Yeah.
don't administer it. It's not necessary for everybody.
Yeah. Um, what's what's the thing with shamans and drugs and psychedelics and psychoactive plants? What
Okay,
can you say about
uh,
that?
okay. So what's the thing? There's two sides to this coin. We're very capable of journeying, of tuning in, of connecting to space, connecting to place, connecting to nature, buildings, without ever taking anything.
Hmm.
We set up the sacred space, we invite in the energies, we work with the initiations that we receive into our physical body, and maybe we burn herbs in that space. Really, like on our training, we don't encourage that people take what would be classed as sacred medicine plants, because ideally we would like people to be able to access these innate tools that they've got, or these innate ways of being that they've already got inside of them, without the reliance on plant medicine.
Hmm.
If we need plant medicine to access those realms, how are we ever going to get on with clients? If I see 5, 7, 8 clients in a week, I'd be permanently out of my head.
Yeah.
I just no. Um, so it's not 100% necessary. When sacred plants are used, they're usually used for very specific events.
Hmm.
So specific energy healings, for example, initiation is another time in a traditional setting. Or if somebody has a severe medical or psychological condition, many people will have heard that drug users specifically go off to foreign lands and they take these magical plants and they come home and they don't have those addictive patterns anymore, and they never touch things like heroin or cocaine or those substances ever again. So that really is for something quite specific.
Hmm.
Yeah. Um, it's in no way frivolous, and it's always sacred. If you've reached the point in your life journey that you're addicted to a substance and you've tried everything else, and you're prepared to travel to Peru or Japan or whatever it is, my thoughts around that would be that's your path, because other people stop those things without going to those lengths.
Hmm.
Um,
Which goes
it's
into
go
uh,
on.
the belief and the conviction that the plant is supposed to call the person who's meant to use it,
Yes.
and not the other way around. Not like you
Yes.
take it out of the shelf. Oh, what do I need today? Like decaf coffee and ayahuasca or something.
Yeah, 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 exactly. It's not for people going to seek mystical experiences. You can have mystical experiences, but you can also have those through breathing techniques, practice journeying. There's dozens of ways that you
Mhm.
can reach such states without having to take plants.
Yeah.
So if anybody is thinking of going down this path and they're worried about, oh, do I have to take ayahuasca at some point? The answer is no, not unless it calls to you or for some reason that is shown to you. Would you, and even then, you would still have the chance to say yes or no.
Yeah.
So it's not, it's not mandatory, shall
Hmm.
we say. Um, that said, uh, should we talk about the different types of plants, where they come from, what
That would
people
be
might be
great.
interested in?
Yeah. Hmm.
Okay. So, um, the famous one these days, worldwide, seems to be the old ayahuasca. I've even heard that they do it in Chelsea, in London. Can you imagine going to a China teacup ayahuasca ceremony in the west of London? Yeah, I was just going to cough too. Excuse me. But I
Wow.
think, yeah, I think that says it all, that little cough.
Mm. Yeah.
So let's just talk about ayahuasca for a minute. It's native to South America. It's a lowland jungle plant. Um, and ayahuasca is a brew of more than the vine herself.
Hmm.
There's another plant which is added, which is called capi, which is what releases the DMT. Basically, if you take ayahuasca on its own, it won't do anything. We need the inhibitor to hit the belly, and then everything starts to work. And what it really does is naturally tap into the DMT that we hold within our brains anyway.
Hmm.
It's believed that it's that access to the DMT that we experience as death. That's why it's there in our
Hmm.
brains, so that we have a conscious death, getting out of this life alive. So really, it only activates what's already in us, but at a higher dose. Okay. And Aya and Waskar, it means vine of death. So that's what it's doing. It's putting us into a death state.
Yeah.
And this is where the misunderstanding comes with the new age. It's like, oh, well, my ego needs to die. So I need to go to South America and take ayahuasca. Not quite. You know,
Mm-mm.
you need an ego in order to
Mhm.
have a body and in order to live in 3D.
Mhm.
It's the thing that discerns, it's the things that makes judgments, it's the thing that's keeps tries to keep us safe, you know. So the whole idea of death in plant medicine is to momentarily die, to be able to reveal yourself to yourself as a particle of the greater whole, and then return and integrate for a number of years, and then
Mhm.
implement once you've understood.
Mhm.
So this getting bumps out of your spiritual path is nonsense.
Yeah, I can put bumps into the spiritual path too.
Yeah, double hands up for that. No shit. Yeah, yeah. Um, if I start talking about my own personal experience, this video will be really, really long. Um, but if anybody does want to come to me afterwards and ask any questions about my personal experience, it's not a secret. It's just a 7 year process to talk about because that's how long it took me once I came back from Peru to understand what had happened to me, what had happened to my energy fields, my different bodies, where all of parts of my psyche had gone and how to bring them back and understand that took 7 years. And that is as a practicing shaman. I studied for 8 years before I went to Peru. I studied this Peruvian tradition
Mhm.
um, in preparation. Well, quite frankly, Daniela, I was never been prepared. It didn't matter how much study I did. So, yeah, she took me to pieces, down to the bone, and she put me back together. That
Mhm.
is the shamanic death.
Big
Um,
dismemberment.
yeah, huge and rememberment
Mhm.
afterwards. Yeah, yeah. So again, I am willing to answer these questions. It's not, I'm not gatekeeping, I'm not secretive about it. It's just a really long journey. Okay.
Yeah.
I will say it's not the same for everybody though. Ayahuasca gives you what you need.
Mhm.
I took it once, in my first sitting, and yeah, all of the things that happened. And about 4 days later, I took it again and nothing happened.
Mhm.
Nothing happened at all.
Yeah, I've heard that a few times.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So she will give you the experience that you require, sometimes based on your intention.
Yeah.
Maybe if she had given me a journey the second time, I'd still be in the re-remembering currently.
Mhm.
Maybe it would have taken 14 years and she thought that was enough.
Mhm.
Um, okay. What I mean, the only reason I went to Peru to do ayahuasca was because I studied a Peruvian tradition.
Mhm.
That's what came to my path, and that's why I went there.
Yeah.
Not everybody follows a Peruvian tradition or wants to go to South America to be in the jungle, to be bitten half to death by bugs, to
Mhm.
vomit, you know, and then come back in order to learn what they need to learn. So there's a lot more plants closer to home, but used historically and currently. So in Europe, excuse me, the older way of journeying with plants would have involved things like mandrake, henbane, thorn apple. I don't know what the translation for thorn apple would be, but the Latin is the datura. People know the flower that opens in the moon, opens in the moonlight.
Mhm.
And the other one would have been belladonna. And what they would have done is blended those.
Mhm.
And if you know anything about plants, what you're basically doing there is poisoning yourself to the correct level that you hallucinate and do not die.
Mhm. Let's just put a little disclaimer in here that we're not telling anybody to take anything.
No, least of all, mandrake, henbane, datura, or belladonna. It is an art. Yeah.
Hmm.
And maybe in lots of cases it is a lost art. And that just made me remember something actually. I had a healing session a long, long time ago, maybe blimey, 15 years ago, because I had a stomach complaint.
Hmm.
And um the shaman who helped me find the source of this stomach complaint was in my witching past lives. I'd been killed by belladonna by ingesting belladonna.
Wow.
Yeah, I've just remembered that. Um,
God.
so yeah, this whole shamanic witchy thing I've obviously been doing for quite some time. Anyway, the other, the more famous and potentially accessible plant that people may have already done are things like the fly agaric mushroom. They're European, and that's the red one with the white spots that you see drawn in old photographs with a gnome sat on the top or a fairy or something. Again,
Hmm.
highly poisonous and has to be processed very, very safely in order to ingest it. Again, not recommending it. And the other are the psilocybin family, which everybody knows about, liberty caps, those things. Well, here in the UK, at picking time, they're usually spaced around cowpats, cow poo
Hmm.
in the
Yeah, yeah.
moist morning, which is how they're spread about. And I say this is psilocybin is really the an introduction, if you will. Lots of young people take it recreationally. I wouldn't recommend it, taking anything recreationally, but those are the plants really of yeah, the UK and the European continent.
Hmm.
It's always good to work with, especially if you're not in a lineage of some description, but you want to work with the psychoactives, is to befriend one that is of your land, of your
Yeah.
culture, and of your genetics,
Hmm.
because, well, that again, that's another long story, actually. But we're attuned to the European land. We're attuned to the European weather patterns and the seasons. We've hopefully been eating food from our land most of our lives. And this whole setup, we're attuned to where we live.
Hmm.
Yeah, very much so. The other two plants I want to talk about are peyote. That's another famous one. That's the little all tiny ball shaped cactus without any spines. And this is generally used in the Native American traditions because it's Central America, Mexico, and the southern states of North America. I've never done peyote, although I was gifted one. I do have a peyote in the kitchen. That sits on the windowsill. Um, the other is San Pedro that people generally know about, and these are the tall cactuses with the big hand-shaped uh they're not petals. I don't actually know what they're called. But the round, flat pieces of plant, sorry, don't know the word, that I've got big spikes on them.
Hmm.
Um, And I found out recently that that particular cactus, the San Pedro, is known as the cactus of the four winds,
Oh,
which I thought,
really?
yeah, yeah, which I thought
How
was really,
many how many stripes does it have again? There's a certain number of.
no, that's not the one. It's the ones that have got these big flat leaves,
Oh, yeah,
not
yeah, yeah.
not the
So I'm
ones that,
talking,
yeah,
right, yeah.
yeah.
Because that could have been like a medicine wheel also.
Oh
If you look,
yeah, yeah, I see.
it probably is.
Yeah, I see what
Yeah.
you mean. I see what you mean.
Hmm.
Um, and that grows. Yeah, mainly in South, well, more arid. I'm sure you can probably find them in Central and the southern states of North America, but generally speaking, it's a South American plant. So if you do go to Peru and you go to the mountains, likely you'll be served San Pedro. If you go to the jungle, likely you'll be served ayahuasca because those are the plants of the two different regions.
Yeah.
Yeah. So really, as a shaman, your drug of choice was very geographic in nature.
Hmm.
What I find really intriguing about all of this is how did they know? How did the witches in Central Europe know about Mandrake and Belladonna? How
Did
did
they
the
just
jungle people?
try? Yeah, did they just try it until they found it? How did they know?
I don't know. How many died trying the wrong stuff in the wrong order? Well, um, they didn't because, as was taught to me by the ayahuasquero in Peru, it's the plants that taught them.
Yeah,
You know, if we are very connected to nature, we can touch any plant in any hedgerow or connect with it, and it should be able to tell us what its
yeah,
medicine is.
people do.
Um, yeah, people still do that. Yeah.
Yeah,
How it's always worked for me, because hedgerows are very dense and diverse areas, I would always have one plant pop up like, hello, hello, hello. And then I would not pick it. I would go home and research about it because I didn't
hmm,
even know what its name was in the
hmm.
early days. And then what I found over time was every year, different plants self-seed in my garden.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, I've lived here nearly 25 years, so the connection with the land has to be established.
Hmm.
You have to love the land and et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, I don't know when that started to happen, really, some time ago. But yeah, you can guarantee that what ends up on your land is there for some reason.
Hmm.
But I mean, that's plant medicine in the broadest sense, not, not just the psychedelics,
Yeah,
but it's
yeah,
the same principle
definitely.
that we have to connect and get to know who, not what, who
Hmm.
we are wanting to
Hmm.
understand and potentially work with in the longer term.
Hmm. So why would a shaman ingest these plants? What's the occasion?
What's the occasion? I said before, really, initiation. Oh, you
Hmm.
mean as the individual, not for the client?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
as the shaman themselves.
Okay. So, okay. For me, and that's all I can really speak on, is that was the call. That was the call. As I said, I studied for 8 years this practice, and then I planned to go to Peru, and I didn't know whether I was going to do ayahuasca or not. And then I was on a phone to a friend who lived in Peru, and our phone call was interrupted, and she said, "Hold on a minute, the ayahuasquero is on the other line." And she came back on the phone and said, "Oh, he's going to be here when you're here. Would you like to
Mm.
sit?"
Yeah,
So it came to me.
yeah.
Yeah, it came to me. Um, why else? I mean, in the broadest sense, you can it does ease journeying to other realms. It prolongs a journey. It deepens a journey. Um, there can be psycho-spiritual benefits. Um, some shamans are known to be a little bit mad, and
Hmm.
I can hold my hands up to that. I think madness and yourself, I think madness is part of it, in a way, because you need to be able to venture further than what people call the edge in
Yeah.
order to be able to find the pieces. Um, it gives more answers than psychotherapeutic counseling does
Mhm.
alone. Um, And that's very much based on belief. If the psychotherapeutic community believe that we are just this thing, then
Mhm.
that kind of structure isn't going to give us an answer to
Mhm.
something that has a spiritual cause.
Yeah.
So yeah, things like that. Um, it's very personal.
Mhm.
It's very personal. When people say to me, should I do ayahuasca? I would never really say yes or no.
Mhm.
It's a very, very personal thing.
Mhm.
Um, it was the most horrifically amazing thing I ever did.
Mhm.
So yeah, there's probably as many reasons as they are plants.
Yeah. Yeah, I
That
think
answer the question?
yeah, totally. I mean, it's easy to forget also that each one of these plants has a lot of other benefits. Aside of being psychoactive, there's a
Yeah.
lot of just other health benefits or risks or whatever, like any plant really.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that's just something that has to be considered as well. Like how is this plant a part of my journey? And maybe it's not to like trip or something.
No.
Maybe the reason is a different one. Um, yeah, because I feel like when I connect with psychoactive plants, it's not as transformative as a healing session, but it can be clarifying
Yeah.
for my mind. For
Yeah.
example, it can be grounding.
Yeah.
Uh, Obviously, I only work with plants from my homeland, but there's just a lot of other things that happen. But the healing itself, in my experience, from my experience, does not come from a trip with anything.
No. No. I would say that ayahuasca for me was a teaching plant, not a healing plant. What
Right.
she did was show me all of the places that weren't functioning in the way that they needed to if I was to fulfill my destiny in this lifetime.
Yeah.
So she showed me everything that needed to go, which is why it took 7 years of integration.
Good. Good
Yeah.
long trip. Woo.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so a lot of people, when they hear shamanism, they think, yeah, plant spirits and psychedelics and whatever. So what would you say to a client who comes in who's like, well, what's the difference then? Or what? I mean, I've heard of my friends, they go to ayahuasca ceremonies or they take stuff with a shaman. So if you don't give me psychedelics, what's how does this even work?
Can you ask me that differently?
Um,
Sorry.
how, like if you want to go and work with the shaman, but your idea is that that includes psychedelics.
Yeah.
What would you say to a person who has that belief, who's like, oh, I
Oh, I
come to
see.
ceremony, but there's
Yeah, yeah.
no
I would
nothing.
say do healing sessions and then see if you still want to go.
Yeah,
Yeah. I know that's very short based on what you said,
yeah.
but how can, say you're brand new to this and you've just heard about ayahuasca or something similar on the internet, and you're like,
Hmm.
oh, I found this shaman on Instagram. Give me the drugs.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I would tell them that there's a process to go through
Hmm.
and to really, really think about why it is that they want to do this because it's not a shortcut, it's a deep cut, really. And that there are, maybe we should start with the thin end of the wedge if this is what we're gonna do.
Hmm.
Um, and so, yeah, to commit to having a number of years of shamanic work done, implement a practice themselves, to see
Yeah.
whether it is absolutely necessary. And I mean, and you'll always get the gung ho one who's like, nah, fuck that.
Hmm.
I'm off to Peru. And then I would wish them luck.
Yeah.
Yeah, and refer them when they came back because I don't really
Yeah.
want to clear up that mess, quite frankly.
Would you say it's if you go to a ceremony, if you attend a ceremony or you're in a healing session without plant medicine, it's easier to integrate the healing.
Yeah,
So
because you're in control. This is the thing. These plants have their own spirit.
yeah.
So they will do with you as they see fit because they're older, wiser, and far more intelligent than we.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's why I'm saying educate yourself before you put your hands into something, to educate yourself before you put yourself in the hands of something um that is ancient and still very much connected to the whole universe.
Yeah.
Yeah. When we develop our own practice, when we have a healing session, you've got to you can go back to your shaman. You can do 28 days of healing. You can work it with the moon. You can record it step by step. You can build up. Um, yeah, taking these plants sometimes can be like being scoured from the inside out. A healing
Yeah.
session, I'm going backwards and forwards, but don't get me wrong, healing sessions can be deeply powerful, but you're not in an altered state of consciousness.
Yeah. You're still able to, you still have control as the client
Yeah,
over your body.
yeah. And your mind and how the pace and how you do things, especially if you're well supported by your practitioner,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
you may not necessarily have this with the plants.
Yeah.
In the end, I will say is probably the last point because, yeah, we haven't got very long today, but I actually had the spirit of ayahuasca extracted 7 years after,
Yeah.
because after 7 years after my initial ceremonies, because she was still working me.
Hmm.
And I say it like that. I wasn't working her, she was working me because I'm not an ayahuasquero.
Hmm.
And I did ceremony and I had her extracted.
Hmm. How do you feel since then?
Free. No, I'm still working on
Yeah.
understanding, yeah, integrating and implementing actually what it is that I learned.
Hmm.
I think if we're to sum up, don't chase mystical experiences. Ask yourself why. Don't follow trends. Get
Hmm.
some really good information.
Hmm.
Get a really, really good practitioner, preferably if you're going to go to a different country, an indigenous person who does this traditionally.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I wouldn't say it's the final choice because that wouldn't be true for everybody. But
Yeah.
s- if you think that is an answer, try everything else first.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh,
Hmm.
when I think it's in South Africa, when these people are chosen,
Hmm.
they run away.
Hmm.
They run away. They say, no, I don't want to do it.
Hmm.
I don't want to do this. I don't want to spend my life this way. It, and maybe, yeah, um, they take iboga,
Yeah. Yeah.
which is known to be super rough, to be honest. So maybe that's why. But it's
Take it
like
every
it,
day.
yeah, yeah. It's like anything. Just pause, think about it, and ask yourself why.
Yeah. And the mystical experience is usually not on the other side of the planet.
No,
Or
no,
right here.
no.
And we're just over here.
Because you are the portal to the other world. So it's being able to go inside appropriately to find the answers of what you're looking for.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, hopefully. Hopefully that explains it. I very much have a foot in both camps with this stuff.
In both camps.
Yeah, yeah. Do you understand what I mean?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. But maybe elaborate just for our viewers.
Right, okay. There's a place. Yeah. There's a place for these things and it's not every day. Um, Part of me would say it's a wonderful expanding experience, and another part of me would say, no, don't do it. Which is why it's important to sit at the
Hmm. Hmm.
midpoint and know why. And
Yeah.
because I want to is not an answer. Well, it's not an informed answer. It's the voice of the child.
Hmm.
We've got to sink down in and understand. It's like when we do any ceremony, when we say to our
Hmm.
apprentices, for example, use what you will. If you can't find A,
Hmm.
use what you will, but know why you are choosing it.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
intuition
Exactly.
and discernment, basically.
Mhm.
The final point I want to make is if anybody wants to, well, there are 2 points. If anybody wants to do any research about this, Stanislav Grof, excellent researcher. I think he's attached to the Monroe Institute, or he used to be. And the other one is the obvious Timothy Leary.
Hmm.
And he's very much talking about your mindset and the setting that you do this in, as well as the people that you are surrounded by, which is
Hmm.
all taken care of when it's done in sacred ceremony. But in sacred space with a trained person, set and setting is a large proportion of what is happening.
Yeah.
So yeah, Stanislav Grof and Timothy Leary are two really good sources to research. And yeah, if anybody wants to ask me any questions personally, they can send me a voice note on WhatsApp, and yeah, I'll answer as best as I can from my own experience.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you for the chat. That's
Well,
great.
thank you. Um, I look forward to hearing what everybody feels about this actually, because it's quite an emotive subject, which is why we've included it.
Hmm.
Yeah. And incidentally, none of these things are really drugs. They're plant medicine, and all medicine should be treated with respect.
Yeah. Should be legal too.
Yeah, maybe we'll do a video about that. Okay. So, is there anything you want to add before we end, Daniela?
No, I think that's good. Yeah. Thank
Okay.
you for the chat. Thank you everyone for watching, for listening. Thank you for asking questions, for being here. And yeah, let us know what you think.
Yeah, I echo that. And also we're going to do a Q&A in the coming months. If anybody wants to talk to us directly on a Zoom like this, to ask any questions about the apprenticeship starting in November, any concerns you might have. Yeah, putting a face uh, to, yeah, putting a face to what we're offering. And yeah, we'll be available for about an hour to have that chat.
Yeah, come and join whenever the date is out. And yeah, wishing
Okay.
everyone fantastic weeks ahead.
Okay. Bye for now.
Bye.